Morning. First and foremost, obviously, rest in peace, Charlie Kirk, and may God bless your family. I was actually going to talk about the poor Ukrainian lady that was violently murdered on a train in America at the beginning of the week. But now this has happened. But I do find the two are joined, in my opinion. And my main feelings are that our governments and authorities, media particularly, education system particularly, have a lot to answer for. Again, as I've said a lot, the UK and then the USA used to be a place of great humour, thick-skinned, cheeky attitudes, cheeky sitcoms. You know, people used to be able to take a joke about all sorts of colours, creeds, shapes and sizes. You could have a laugh, move along. People could have different opinions. And for me, it seems that the more tolerance has been pushed, the more intolerant we've become. And when you look at what kids are taught these days, whether it's white supremacy, which is utter nonsense, slavery, British Empire, toxic masculinity, all this kind of stuff. And then you have DEI in businesses, where depending on the colour of your skin, you have a better right of getting a job, getting a place at uni, creating that divide and two-tier system, which is beyond unnecessary and quite, what's the word, rude or disgusting really, towards people of different skin types. Like, they need a two-tier system. You have the huge propaganda of pride, which used to be just a very quiet, reasonable, right, you know, good movement for gay rights, has turned into a huge political movement and has flags everywhere. Media pushes it, brands take on board the rainbow. It's immense. You know, the propaganda is huge on kids, and it creates a huge divide. Going back to the poor woman on the train, I never knew any race relation problems in the 90s. As I've said before, sports stars were revered, nobody cared. There were pop stars loved. Look at Michael Jackson and again, brains fried, but people were revered, nobody cared. Sports stars all over the place were gods. It just wasn't ever mentioned. Yeah, you get the odd idiot who might mention it, but they would be the same idiots who talked about you being fat or ginger. Just idiots. But race relations have got so much worse since all of this woke ideology has been pushed. And then the same goes for really divisive subjects, whether that's trans, climate, Brexit, you name it. People have become so polarised because in schools and in the media, they push the idea that there's one righteous side and the other is evil, and they use such ridiculous inflammatory language. Windy. You know, I've only ever lost a couple of friends, and both times it was one because I supported Trump and one because I supported Brexit. You know, I never see people on the right not allowing others to have a voice, being angry at other people's opinions, falling out with people because of their opinions. I find them very tolerant people, but the same is not given back to them. I just think there's a huge conversation that needs to be had in stop the division. Go back to teaching our kids to be thick-skinned, the art of debate, respect, and teach balance in everything in schools. Stop teaching any ideology whatsoever. Only base education on facts, English, maths, science. And if you're going to teach history like slavery, do it balanced. Talk about how Britain stopped slavery. Talk about how Britain borrowed so much money. They only recently paid off that immense amount of money to free the lives of those slaves. Talk about how slavery started in the Middle East and was worse perpetuated by the Arabs and the Middle East and Africa. How white people were deemed cheaper versions because they were deemed weaker, and more white people were taken as slaves to, say, Africa than Africans to America. Talk about the Arab slave trade. Talk about slavery today in the Middle East and Africa. If you're going to talk about empires, talk about the Ottoman Empire, Mongolian, Persian. Talk about the Normans, Saxons, Vikings. You know, you get where I'm coming from. We need to switch things up so we talk about our past truthfully, but with a twist to showing how much good, say, Britain has done. And never talk about race. It should not be a subject matter. That, you know, the African kings, immensely wealthy. Nothing is anything to do with the colour of your skin. Nothing. It's beyond insignificant, as important as the colour of your eyes. And then teach balance, teach tolerance, you know, the art of polite debate. Like Charlie said, like I've said a lot, only through polite discourse can progression truly be made. It's very worrying, and universities and the education and the media, for me, have a huge part to play here, where they need to really look in the mirror and say, what part have I had to play in this? And how can we turn this around and make our society better? And as I've shared today, Charlie was very, very Christian. And the saying, love thy neighbour as you love yourself, has never been a more poignant statement. So I'm going to leave it there.